Hey there Internet, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a look at 10 4-2-3 variations. So to start with, we're going to have some really nice easy variations that basically anyone can attempt. If you have got a Cascade, you're going to be able to have a go at these variations. As we get further on in the video, the variations are going to get harder and harder up until some pretty decently tough 4-2-3 variations. So come along for the journey and see how far you get. So if you're unsure to start with what I mean when I say 4-2-3, first of all, this is 4-2-3 here. But we also have an entire video on the basics of site swap where we go over what 4-2-3 is amongst a bunch of other tricks and why it's called 4-2-3 as well. So if you don't know what 4-2-3 is or why it's called 4-2-3, maybe go check out the video, but you don't actually need to know any of that to learn some of the variations in this video here. We're going to start really quite simple here, and for the purposes of this video I'm going to try and keep the red balls as the 4s and the green ball as the 3. So it kind of keeps it consistent and you can see what's happening. So what I'm calling the base trick for today is this version here, where all of the throws come from the inside towards the outside. And either your standard, Cascade throws or your standard fountain throws. The first variation we're going to look at is super simple then. It's called the W by some people, and it is this one here. And it is 4-2-3 in columns. The way we're going to do this, and the way you're going to go about learning this one, is ideally you want to be able to juggle 2 in one hand as columns here, and keeping the green ball on the inside, swapping it over to the other side. And so the red balls on the outside are going to ideally go straight up and down, unlike when we did the regular 4-2-3, they want to kind of curve from inside to outside. We want to keep the red balls straight up and down here, and the green one on the inside. The next variation we're going to do is 4-2-3 tennis. This is very similar to the W. The red balls are still going to be doing columns, just going straight up and down, but instead of the green ball in the center, going back and forth, we're going to have the green ball on the outside, going back and forth. And you kind of got to throw it a little bit higher and thinking about over the top, as if you're kind of half shower sort of over the top throw. And it's going to go back and forth again. You might want to move the columns from the red balls slightly closer into the center in order to make it a little bit easier. But I wouldn't go too far with this, or they end up kind of like crossing and it gets a bit complicated. Variation number 3 then is going to be the first step into doing something with the 2. All so far we've played with is the kind of position of the 3 and the type of throw that we're doing for the 4. But what we've not done yet is do anything with this hand that holds. So this to start with, we've got a little bit of an exercise that's kind of not the trick, but it's going to help us to work towards the trick. What we're going to do is you're going to pick whatever one you want to do best. I find columns the easiest for this. I also think it looks nicest, but you can do whichever one you want. And what we're going to do is the hand that is just left holding, we're going to try and just give it a shake to begin with. This isn't really the variation. This is just getting it to move and do something. Even if you want to take it down to tap your leg, tap yourself on the head, whatever you want to do with it. I like the wave. This is going to be really good for just getting your arms moving separately from each other, so you can have the trick kind of continuing on and doing something with this offhand. So that brings us on to the actual trick itself for trick 3. We're going to do a version of 2 up, 1 up. What's going to happen here, as one hand throws the 4, the other hand is going to follow it up and down. And then we're going to do the columned 4-2-3 here, but just the other hand, the 2, is going to go up with the 4. And it looks like they're doing this one, where they go 2 up, 1 up. This is also a trick that you can go and learn, but for now we're going to do it with our hands. Variation 4 is the fake mess, and this is very similar to variation 3 actually, and we kind of talked about this one a little bit in the site swap video, but what's going to happen here is we're going to have our 4-2-3 in columns again. I like columns, that's my go-to. If you don't want to do it in columns, you don't have to. And then we're going to take the hand that does the 2, and instead of bringing it up like we did in the last one, we're going to bring it underneath the other arm. And you get this trick, which kind of looks like Mill's mess. It's got a little bit of that like kind of fake mess feel to it. The next variation we're going to do is a 4-2-3 takeout. So what's happening with this trick then? Instead of the 4s going up on their own side, the 4 is going to be thrown underarm, caught up there and pulled round. And you can either pull out over the top of the pattern, or you can kind of pull through the gap that the 3 makes. I personally quite enjoy the one that pulls through the pattern rather than over the top, but that's kind of a personal preference thing, and they're both cool tricks, so give a go at whichever one you fancy. The one strange thing here is starting this trick. So instead of having the balls arranged with the 3 and a 4 and a 4 in the other hand, and going straight into this, I was trying to work out how to go into this trick and keep the colours correct for the video, and found that I need to have 2 of the 4s in one hand and my 3 in the other hand. So what I'm doing here is I'm throwing the first throw open, and then I'm coming up, catch it with the other hand. That's releasing the 3 and giving me the space to put the other 4 under the other arm on the other side. Yeah? So again, we can go first 4 is going to be thrown open here. This is the one for my left hand to catch. The 3 is going to come here, and either I'm going to come underneath, or I'm going to come over the top. So underneath, and it's kind of through the gap that the green and the next 4 are making. So that kind of gap there, as they split like this, the green's coming down into the right hand. So you can practice this putting your hand through the gaps by doing 2 in one hand. And so what I'm thinking about is every time one of the balls is up, I'm thinking of there being the kind of 2 positions, there or there, for the balls to be in. And I'm thinking when one ball's up, I'm going to come down underneath it. Whoa. Okay, so we're going to up the game a little bit here, and we're going to do what's called an active 2. So for this variation, this is going to be the most basic version of a 4-2-3 with an active 2. So all we're going to do is, again, I like my columns, I'm going to stick with columns. So what's happening here is when the 4 is up in the air, we're going to take the hand that's down at the bottom, give it a little shake here to show you which one, and we're going to give it a little throw. To begin with, things that you really got to think about are keeping the 2 really low, because it's got to be caught again before the throw comes back to the hand. start with here as well, you might find throwing the 4s a little bit higher than you would for just a normal kind of 4-2-3 here. If you try to do the active 2s on this kind of pattern, whoa, it's going to get really fast and really tough. However, if you make your 4s just a little bit bigger, and you can make your 3 nice and big as well, this is going to give you loads of time to throw and recatch that active 2. So next we're going to do something fun with these active 2s. The first one that I think is really good to try is the over the arm drop. There are other versions where you can throw it over your arm, but we're not doing that just yet. We're maybe doing that later. But the drop over the arm, I think, is the easiest active 2 to try and put into 4-2-3. So what's going to happen then is we're just going to try 1 to begin with. So breaking it down a little bit then, what's going to happen is when the 4 goes up, and you see I'm keeping my 4s nice and high here, pretty much as high as I can keep them in this room. When the 4 starts going up, I'm going to practice by just pulling my arm over and pulling it back. We can also spend a little bit of time just practicing this drop. You want to get your arm over and back out as fast as possible. So this has got to be quite a fast movement. And then putting it all together, we're going to just try one side of it here. There you go. And then we can build it up slowly, going for the other side next. And then when you feel comfortable, try putting both sides together. There are days I wish the ceiling was just like that much higher. Now that we've tried the overarm drop, what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite of that. So it's going to be a throw from under the arm and back over. And again, because this is a 2, we really want to keep this throw really small and fast. So the more it can like just kind of skim over the top of your arm, the better. Because if you're doing a 2 like that, it goes, oh, you're just not going to have time to put this in. Once again, we can build it up slowly by starting with just what was basically the same as the fake mess, putting the hand underneath. Then we can build it up, trying just one side of the throw. And then when we feel comfortable, after obviously trying it on both sides, not just doing one side, but trying both sides individually, we can put them both together. So next up, we're moving on a little bit, and this last couple are kind of the same trick. It's kind of 2 steps of the same trick, but I thought I would break it up because one of them is so much harder than the other one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a cross-armed 4-2-3. To start with, we can do the easiest version of this. There's kind of 3 stages to this trick if you really want. The first one is where we're just keeping it one direction. So I'm going to say my right hand's going to be on top, my left hand's going to be on the bottom, and we're just going to do 4-2-3 with right on top, left on bottom. If you want to try the other way as well, then you can also do it with just, getting confused there, left on top, right on bottom. This is just as valid. And this is the first step of the cross-armed 4-2-3s. The next version of this is where we're going to swap which hand is on top. What's going to happen and how we're going to do this is our 2 is going to be used to move our arm up to the next side. And so we're going to be doing this kind of motion with one hand just constantly moving up to the other side. This one is still even a bit of a brain boggler for me sometimes, but here we go. The last one we're going to do is another version of the crossed arm swapping 4-2-3s, but this time we're going to put an active 2 in there just to make it extra fun. And our active 2 is going to be that drop over the arm that we did before. So the way this one's going to look here, whew. So there we have it, 10 4-2-3 variations. There is obviously a lot more variations that you could do. There's pretty much an infinite amount, because any throw that you can put back to one hand or back to wherever it wants to go, you can call that 4, or you can kind of call that an active 2. So you can just combine bits and pieces all over the place and make up your own 4-2-3s. So these were some ones that I found kind of useful for learning along the way, because they teach you different kind of techniques and skills and bits to use with the 4-2-3s, either just moving the hands or doing something with 2 or doing something with the active 2, or just, you know, repositioning how it's going to work from, like, you know, the outside to the inside sort of thing. So I hope you've enjoyed the video today and got something useful out of this. We recently just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's pretty cool. I didn't quite expect that to happen, so thank you everyone who has subscribed, and let us know down in the comments if there's any tricks you want me to try and cover, and I'll see you in the next one.